Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Looks like our attendee count is climbing, which means we did something right. People are able to join the call. We are so grateful that you were able to join us today. Thank you so much for being a part of this. While we wait for everybody to clear out of our waiting room and get into this call, just be aware we do have a poll at the bottom of your screen. So participants, if you hover over that all the way at the bottom of your screen, you will see a tab for Q&A and a tab for polls. Feel free to participate in that poll while we wait and get everybody in here. And as soon as our attendee count levels off, we will officially get started. Okay, let's see. I think we're getting close to it leveling off here. Let's wait just another second. All right, so I see our attendee count leveling off, so we will officially go ahead and kick this call off. Hello, and welcome to everybody. My name is Rachel. I am one of the team members at the Petco Foundation, and I am so excited to be here today with our friends from Maddie's Fund to bring you a foster and new adopter support webinar all on cat and kitten care. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. I mentioned to some of you there is a poll at the bottom of your screen. Please participate, fill it out, let us know all of this great information about you. It will help our special guests today during their presentation. At the bottom of your screen, next to that poll button, you also have a Q&A button. So that Q&A is where you can ask all of your great questions. We'll have hopefully about 20-30 minutes at the end of the call for Q&A. So put all your questions in there and we'll be sure to get to those by the end of the call. And there's also a chat box that is available for all of you. So if you have some questions or comments, feel free to put your info in the chat box. We will also be posting some resources in the chat box throughout the call. This is scheduled for 1 hour. If you have to jump off before the hour ends, do not worry. We are recording this and it will be available. Within 24 hours, you will receive an email link with all of this great information and some recordings to other webinars as well. So before we get started, on behalf of the Petco Foundation, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has joined this call. If you have joined this call, there's a good chance that you have stepped up to save a life during this COVID-19 crisis. We've put together these webinars to just offer a little extra support to those of you who have decided to become fosters, who have decided to adopt, who have really taken the action to save a life in such a challenging time. So we cannot thank you enough. Your animal welfare partners and your shelters and your rescues and everybody that you're helping in the community cannot thank you enough. So know that you're doing great work. Know that we are so grateful for you and know that we are here for you. So with that, without further ado, let's get to our special guest of the day. We are joined by two women from Maddie's Fund. We have Kelly Dewar, whose official title is Foster Care Specialist, but I've been told that she's the Foster Care Extraordinaire, and I like that title better. So Kelly Dewar, Foster Care Extraordinaire. And then we also have Dr. Segerson from Maddie's Fund. She's a veterinary behaviorist, so she will have a lot of great info to share with y'all as well. So Kelly, Dr. Segerson, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm Kelly Dewar. I am really excited to be here for a couple reasons. But the first one is I love foster care and I think it's amazing, but also because I started out as one of you guys. In 2013, I started fostering for my local shelter and it ended up turning into this my job. I am here with, I've got like Java back here. She is my most recent foster fail. I'll just tell you really quickly a little bit of her story. I was working with a rescue and they asked me to go and pick up a cat, 2 kittens who were sick, and one of them had trouble with their back legs. And so I said, okay. And they said they thought she had cerebellar hypoplasia. And so I went and got them. And then over the next few days, I'm like, this cat has no idea how to go to the bathroom. We took her to the vet, and the vet said, she's incontinent. I think she's paralyzed, and you're going to have to express her bladder every day. And I was like, it was like this cold finger of fear that I couldn't do it. And I was like, foster care is your job. But also, this is terrifying. Actually, it turned out to be really, really, really easy. And I was just, it sounds like it's scary, but it's actually, a lot of these things are really easy once you try them. And one thing I didn't expect with her is the like deep and profound connection that we have. I have had some really profound connections with pets, but this is on another level. So I'm a little, I like the special needs pets, behavioral, medical, whatever. Sheila?
Hi, I'm Dr. Sheila Segerson, and as said before, I'm a veterinary behaviorist, and I've been working with shelters for over 20 years. Like Kelly, I'm also a foster caregiver. I've been fostering pets for over 20 years, primarily dogs, but also cats. The cats I've fostered have primarily been litters of kittens with medical issues that I fostered when I was practicing veterinary medicine. As well as bottle babies when we had, I previously led a foster-based adoption program. So that's my background, and I think we can jump in, Kelly, if you want to share your screen. All right, and the little kitten you'll see on the next slide is one of my foster kittens, Milo. He was a kitten I fostered about 5 years ago now, and he ended up with FIV, but the best cat in the world. We can jump forward to the Maddie slide, Kelly.
1 second, sorry.
While Kelly's doing that, I am going to tell you a little bit about Maddie's Fund, where Kelly and I both work. Maddie's Fund is a family foundation created in 1994 by Workday co-founder Dave Duffield and his wife Cheryl, who've endowed the foundation with more than $300 million. Since then, the foundation has awarded more than $237.6 million in grants towards increased community life-saving, shelter management leadership, shelter medicine education, and foster care across the U.S. The Duffields named Maddie's Fund after their miniature schnauzer, Maddie, who you can see on the screen, who always made them laugh and gave them a lot of joy. Maddie's Fund is the fulfillment of a promise to this inspirational dog, investing its resources to create a no-kill nation where every dog and cat is guaranteed a healthy home or habitat, thanks to Maddie. You can jump to the next slide, Kelly. We're going to be talking about several different topics, and please ask when you're submitting questions. And just a reminder about the poll on the bottom of your screen. If you have not responded to that poll, we appreciate you responding to the poll. But please go ahead and submit your questions. We're going to be talking about all different topics, and we'll try to answer all the questions. In looking at you guys and how you've answered the poll, it looks like about 40% of you are currently fostering a cat or kitten. So thanks to those of you who are fostering, thanks to Petco for putting on this series. And we have about 50% who aren't and about 6% who are waiting to pick up. Most of you who are fostering don't have your foster cat or kitten yet. And the second most, 40% of you have had your cat or kitten for more than a week, which kind of fits with what's going on in our world right now, right? And in terms of how long you've been fostering, really broad range in terms of some of you are new to fostering, and there's 25% of you who've been fostering more than 5 years. So thanks to all of you who've been doing this long term. Going to be talking about a couple items related to basic veterinary care first, and you can jump into the next slide, Kelly. So the first topic I'm going to talk about is upper respiratory infections in cats. Really, really common for cats who have been in situations where they're around. I feel like I almost don't need to talk about this now because everybody knows so much about respiratory illnesses. But how many of you, please type in your chat area if you're currently fostering a cat or a kitten who has an upper respiratory infection. So go ahead and type there. We're going to talk first. Oh, and sorry, I just realized I had the wrong slide up. Upper respiratory infection is the next slide. First, we're going to talk about appetite. So having oh, thank you, Kelly. jump around. So upper respiratory infection, common in cats who have been living in close quarters with other cats or kittens, and especially those with weak immune systems. Our signs are pretty much what we think about with a cold in terms of discharge from the nose and sneezing. I want to talk about signs to watch for. So we're all staying at home, and what are signs that we really need to be worried about that make us need to contact our foster coordinator or a veterinarian or someone to provide more help? And so when we're talking about upper respiratory infections, that means things like sneezing and nasal discharge that persists. It's getting worse and worse and not going away. An appetite change. So the cat has cold type symptoms, but their appetite is down. Oftentimes that's because they have a stuffed up nose, but it is definitely something to be concerned about. Having really noisy, raspy, or difficulty breathing, that is certainly something to pay attention to. And then other signs of illness, so things like coughing, vomiting, or lethargy alongside an upper respiratory infection are definitely signs to watch for and signs that you should contact your veterinary clinic or foster coordinator or whoever it is you contact for help. All right, and now we can jump and talk about appetite. Thanks for that, Kelly. All right, so appetite. Having a decreased appetite is really common in cats as they enter foster care because it can be stressful to have an environment change for a lot of kitties. And so it's really common for cats to eat less, drink less, and lose weight when they change environments. But cats can also get really, really sick just because of not eating. So cats, more than dogs, it's an emergency if they are not eating for more than 2 days. Definitely something you want to call your foster coordinator or veterinarian about. Having the inability to eat is another sign to watch for. So there's a lot of reasons a cat might not be eating. Most common is changing to a new home, but if they're trying to pick up food and it's dropping out of their mouth. If you see jaundice or a yellow color to their skin, there's a disease that can go along with not eating in cats that can kill them. So looking for a yellow color to their skin, looking in their ears is a good place to look because obviously they have a lot of fur. It's a little more difficult. And other signs to watch for to know that you should call your vet or your foster coordinator related to appetite are other types of signs. So things like having a distended abdomen, seeming painful, having signs of upper respiratory infection, that type of thing. All right, we can jump on to the next one, Kelly. All right, and then the next one I'm going to talk about diarrhea. Diarrhea is really common with environmental change as well, and it's also very, very common in kittens. We have to be very careful in kittens because kittens are much smaller, more fragile. They can get dehydrated more easily, and it's something they can die from if not treated appropriately. But the vast majority of diarrhea is something that is inconsequential and goes away on its own. But how do you know whether it's something that you should really be worrying about or something that you shouldn't? Things to watch for. Diarrhea that lasts for more than a day or two. So diarrhea that's persisting, having large amounts, because if you think about it, if there's a large amount coming out the back end, that means they're losing a lot of water and can be getting very dehydrated, which can be serious. Having diarrhea very frequently, having diarrhea that is super, super watery. So a little bit of soft stool, I'm not going to worry that much about, but when it's really watery or has blood in it, that's definitely a sign of contact your foster coordinator or a veterinarian. And then just like with everything else, diarrhea with other signs of illness like vomiting, lethargy, upper respiratory signs, those are all signs to watch for that you need to contact someone. So getting help when you need it. When we asked you guys in the poll, most of you are contacting your shelter or rescues veterinary clinic or your foster coordinator when you have a problem, and that's great. That's great to hear. And some of you are contacting your own veterinarian or messaging your a group that you have with your foster fellow foster caregivers. getting help when you need it. Always make sure that you look at your foster manual. If you have a foster manual, hopefully you do. Oftentimes there's really good tips in there. So refer to that, and that helps you to learn where to go to. Obviously contacting who it says in that manual, which is usually your shelter's veterinary clinic or foster coordinator, is best. But I also want to make sure you all are aware of telehealth services. Telehealth services essentially mean services that are provided remotely. Because we're dealing with COVID-19 right now, it's harder to go into, or it's riskier, I should say, to go into a veterinary clinic. And there are telehealth services that we can contact that will help to provide if we're in an emergency situation and we can't reach our shelter's veterinary clinic or foster coordinator, then you can use these types of services. Pet Coach is one of them. Vets Plus More is another. There's a number of different services out there, but that you can message and ask about your foster cat to get information about how serious. So they're not going to diagnose anything. They're not going to prescribe medication, but they will give you information in terms of further help. Also wanted to remind everybody that Facebook groups, if your organization has one for communicating with other foster caregivers, are great, as well as Maddie's Pet Forum, which is an online forum where you can ask questions about your foster pet. This picture is of one of my foster kittens, Pikachu.
It's adorable. All right, we're gonna, you're good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, we're gonna talk real quick about fearful and shy cats. This is just kind of a story about a cat that I fostered. His name was Guy. He is kind of an outlier in what happens to this story, but he came into the shelter. And one thing that I didn't realize before I became a shelter volunteer and foster was that shelters, no matter how good they are still really stressful for a lot of pets. So Guy got there. He was there for 4 months and he had terrible notes. Feral type behavior continues, not able to handle, not adoption candidate. These are all notes that were actually in his file. A few months later, a couple of the caretakers decided they were gonna just, hang out with him. In Virginia, we have a law that says that we can't, if a pet has been taken into the shelter and, has been housed there, we're not allowed to put them back. So we can do TNR, but we can't intake them to the shelter. But he had been intake, so we couldn't put him back. So anyway, they got to know him, and they after a month or so, they said, "What will you take him home and foster him?" So I picked him up, and I came home and walked in the door, and my husband sees him in his crate, and he's going, "Arr!" And he's like, what did you do? Did you ask for like the scariest cat at the shelter? And I was like, no, but I think this is it. We went into, our one room where there was really, it was really kind of bare, and it just had our cat stuff in it. It was just for him. And I had my book. I was prepared for this to be a really long, I thought he was gonna need a lot of work. And so I went in with my book, I started reading. 30 minutes later, this cat is in my lap, kneading and purring. It was the most profound change that I have witnessed. Guy was an amazing cat. He was just terrified in the shelter. What was really funny was that about a week after we had him, I had a whole bunch of people over. And if I were to let my own cats out during that time, they would just like go run somewhere and hide. And I was like, well, I'll keep my cats away and maybe see if Guy wants to come out. This cat worked the crowd for 2 hours. He went up to every single person and got love, literally the entire 2-hour thing. He was pretty amazing. So reducing stress. When pets are in the shelter, it is stressful for them, and moving can also be stressful. So it can take a little while for them to kind of get used to being in your home. And so there's some things you can do. Predictability and routine, that is always really something that pets need. Giving them their own time and the space they need to adjust to it. Also have calm and quiet behavior. I usually sit down, and if it's a cat who is really really scared, sometimes I'll lay down. And sometimes if I'm able to in that room, I will take a nap, because that is really, then it enables the pet to be able to kind of like come near you without it being too scary. No prolonged eye contact, although you can do that with slow blinking. And also calming music. I really like, there's one CD, Cantoma, that I always listen to, and it usually puts pets to sleep. Creating positive association. Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna ask you guys, go ahead and put it in the chat. What are some other ways that you guys reduce stress when you take a pet into your home? And I am not able to see the chat. Wait, here we go. Sorry. All right. So creating positive associations, you want to let the pets know that humans are a good thing. And so you associate yourself or other people with things that pets like. So if so there's a couple of things. Food can be really, really helpful. One thing that I love to use is Gerber baby food, the meat type only. I don't give them too much. I think if you give them more than like a tablespoon or something, that it could give them diarrhea, but in tiny little bits, it can really help with them, because they really like it. If you have treats though, don't toss the treat at them if they're really scared, because sometimes that can scare them. I usually will put something down and walk away and let them eat it if they'd like. If I use the baby food, I often will put like a little dab into their food for a couple days. And once they start liking it, then I'll come into the room with a little bit on the end of a spoon and just stick it over there near them and retreat, and move on to having them come up to the spoon to lick it and then putting it on my finger. And letting the cat set the pace. I think it's really important we don't force interaction. It can really make things go sideways. It's a really delicate balance between kind of pushing them enough that they progress, but not too much that they get scared off. And so those of you who have fostered shy cats or kittens, what is your go-to trick for earning their trust? Go ahead and write in the chat. And I am going to, oh, yes, okay. Sheila, go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted. Jumping on to the next section, talking about cats who bite while we're looking at the everything you're typing in the chat in terms of what you're all doing with your fearful cats. I'm going to ask you to next answer another question in the chat area, and that's if you have been bitten by your cat, please type in the chat area what the circumstance. You don't need to type a paragraph, but if you were playing with your cat when your cat bit you, type that, just playing. So type in the chat area what you were doing with your cat when your cat bit you, and if you've been bitten more than once, please type what you were most recently, or what you and your cat were most recently doing when your cat bit you. All right, and I believe that's Java, isn't that, Kelly? Yeah, so that's a cute picture of Kelly's cat Java, who she was talking about earlier. We can jump to the next slide. So probably the most common reason that our cats bite us is plaguing, and that we're playing with them and they get really excited and might be seeing our hands as a play toy and bite us. And so that's one of the most common reasons, is playing. And in terms of managing this behavior, the big things to remember are They're not doing it to be mean. They're not doing it to intentionally hurt us when they're playing. They're just overly excited. And probably one of the biggest things we can do is not use our hands as toys. So especially with young kittens growing up, it can be really fun to wiggle your hand around in front of them and have them go after it. But that kitten's going to turn into a big cat. So not using our hands as toys. Recognizing the signs. What are the signs that happen before your cat tends to bite you during play? And when you see those signs starting to occur, which might be a twitchy tail, might be intense focus on your hand, but pay attention and recognize those signs so that you can stop playing when that happens. Playing with your cat a lot. So you would think that if your cat's biting when playing, you might not want to play with it, but playing with them more to do things to get rid of that excess energy and mental, whether it's physical or mental, and making sure we're providing both physical and mental exercise. Mental exercise can be things like food dispensing toys that they have to work at and roll around to get the food out of. That's a little bit about play, and if you have other questions about cats who bite while playing, we'll be talking about those later. And thanks for all your comments thus far. We can jump to the next one, which is petting. This is my cat Mowgli, who was in the background earlier today, and Mowgli is a cat who does sometimes, well, not sometimes, frequently bite when being petted. And I'm guessing that many of you have. How many of you, please type yes if you've had a cat now or in the past who bites when you pet them. And we're getting all these yes, 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 yes. Many of us have had cats like this. And when I talk about cats like Mowgli and cats like this, I really like to stress the fact that we need to celebrate the uniqueness of our cats. And Mowgli is not a mean cat. He's not a bad cat. He's just a cat that only likes to be touched in certain places. And I'm guessing that most of us have the same feelings too, and that there's probably certain parts of our body where we don't like to be touched. So it's very normal for cats to feel this way, but it can be very upsetting to people when they're trying to love on their cats and they get bitten. And my recommendations for this type of problem, very briefly, is number one, respecting your cat. So gosh, I would love to pet Mowgli's belly because it's so fuzzy and soft and cuddly, but I never ever touch Mowgli's belly because I know he will bite me. So really paying attention to their body language. For some of these cats, we need to keep the petting sessions short, but get to know your individual cat. And if you're being a foster caregiver, making sure you're paying really close attention so you can pass on that information to the person who is adopting them. Paying attention to their body language, the swishy tail, things like that, and responding to it appropriately. I love these types of pictures. Don't know if you've seen them before, but cats in general, you see the belly is the certain death area. And with my cat Mowgli and with cats in general with this type of difference, I usually recommend petting on the head and neck only because that tends to be a safe spot. And the place right above the tail is one that a lot of cats really like. Many cats who don't like petting don't like to be touched there. So that is to be careful about with cats who don't enjoy petting. All right, we can move on to the next slide, Kelly. All right, and then lastly, cats who are aggressive, not to you, but to someone visiting the house. This is almost always because of fear or territorial behavior, not wanting people to come into their space. Things to remember are, number one, your cat doesn't have to love your visitors, and so sometimes it's just safer to keep them separated when you have visitors over. Number two, don't force interaction because bad things can come out of that, and making sure you're providing safe areas like cat trees that you can see in my background, so a cat has a place to get up and away from everything that's going on when visitors are over.
All right, we're going to talk about finding them a home. All right, the first thing, organizations like shelters and rescues, they really need your help with marketing, especially now, because all of the, marketing that we're able to do for adoption is basically online now. And so getting pictures from you and photos, it's really, really important for them. So when you are considering marketing your pet, your foster pet, emotional connection, that is the main goal. Anytime you are doing anything with marketing, think about it in those terms. What are the things that my foster pet does that make me feel connected to them? Like, does she head bump you when you say hello? Does she boss around the other cats? And, what are the things that about her that make you really fall in love with her? Because somebody else will probably have the same feeling. And if you want to type it into the chat, some of the things that you love about your foster cat. So inside the shelter, marketing can be really difficult. You have just a few backgrounds, usually, like your training room, maybe your cat meeting area. If it's dogs, your outside play area. And also stress makes it really hard for pets to show us who they are in the shelter. Their bodies can be tense. They have this kind of limited behavioral repertoire in some cases, where, if they're really fearful, you can't really get to know who they are that much. But in foster care, you're limited. You have basically no limits. What's awesome about it is that the backgrounds are pretty much infinite, and you see the pets for who they really are. Pets are acting like the pets that they are, usually after a few days of adjustment. And you can find out their likes, their dislikes, their cute quirks. You can take photos like on the one on the left that show off the pet, and then pictures and stuff that can give you information on them, like the one on the right. So the picture on the right, it's not like a great, wonderful composition or anything, but I put it in here because it tells you things. It tells you like 3 or 4 different things just by looking at it. Anybody want to take a shot at it? So one of the things is that, that cat is totally fine with dogs. The cat likes to be high up. That dog also acts like a cat because he's sitting on the cat's Karanda tower. So those kinds of pictures can also be helpful. Photographs, always have your camera on you, which is really easy now because all of your phones are generally have cameras in them. One thing that is important is look for the best light. This was taken in our, like a bonus room that we have. And anytime I have cats in there and I take pictures, it's kind of dim and the light is a little bit yellow. It just doesn't really work in there. So I try not to take pictures in that room, but find the place in your home where the light is best and try to, if you can, bring the pets there to take the pictures. This one was taken in my office, actually right here. And I found that this is the best place to take pictures in our house because the window is right here, but there's no light that's like shining right into their eyes. And it's, and it's enough light, but not too much. So find that place. It's definitely that.
And it looks like Kelly's internet has frozen on us.
I was just gonna ask if we were frozen or if it was just my screen. So I'm happy you said something too. All right. Do you want to take a question while we wait for Kelly's internet to kick back in?
Yeah, I think that sounds like a great idea. And just a reminder to everyone to type your questions into the Q&A area if and when you have them.
Yes. So if you want to take a peek at the questions and see if there are any in the answered section that you are dying to answer, and we'll pull somebody off of mute. So if you've submitted your question, be ready to ask it live. So if you just want to tell me the name of the person, then we're going to find them.
Great. Let's do Shannon Lorraine.
All right. Shannon Lorraine, we are coming to you, Shannon. So get ready for us. All right, Shannon, we pulled you off mute. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Cool, and we can hear you. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question live?
Yeah, sure. So we are fostering a mama and 5 babies, which has been amazing. We started when the babies, we're guessing we're about maybe 3 or 4 days old. And so we're having a little trouble guessing how old they are and when to start introducing solid food or wet food and when to introduce a litter box. Right now they're nursing and we haven't seen them go to the bathroom at all. I think mom is still taking care of it, but those are just the questions we're wondering. Sort of, I know what the general guideline is, but I'm kind of looking for signs from them.
Sure. Really good question. Lots and lots of people are going to be fostering these bottle babies nowadays, or these aren't bottle babies. They have their mama, luckily. But many of us have not cared for these types of kitties before and have questions about them. And so in terms of litter box and food, now is actually a really good time to start you. So usually between 3 and 4 weeks to introduce litter. What I like to remind people is that or not remind people because many people don't know this, but oftentimes the litter that we introduce a kitten to, the very first litter we introduce them to and they're exposed to in the first few weeks of life is the litter they end up preferring for the rest of their life. So I always recommend don't use some crazy, I'm not going to say any different names, but I'd use kind of a traditional clumping litter is what I recommend using. And introducing it now, just putting the litter box in where they are, making sure it has low sides so that they can get in and out. And oftentimes you'll see them first start playing in the litter box, but then they will start using the litter box. And then for food, usually we recommend doing you can offer wet food. Another thing you can do, which might be difficult to do nowadays because we're trying not to go to stores, but for many young kittens, doing a slurry or mixture of kitten formula mixed in with wet food or adding some water because they're going to be licking up the food initially and not really chewing it. So making that kitten food more watery initially while they're starting and just offering it a couple times a day initially, leaving it out for just about 5 minutes or so because we don't want them getting super, super messy in terms of food. And Kelly's back.
Hi, I'm back. I'm so sorry, guys. I lost power. It's windy outside and sometimes that happens. We have some really old stuff. Am I sharing the screen or no?
We can see the presentation view, but yes, you are sharing.
Okay, dang it. All right, well, all right, great.
There we go.
We got it. And we got a question in while you were gone. So it was a fun little pause in it, but we'll let you get back to it. Thanks for coming back to us.
Yeah, happy to. That one, the last thing is if your pet has a story that can help them emotionally connect to a potential adopter, definitely tell it. These two, Spruce was found with several other kittens in a bush. It had been like burning and they were like singed. And so they were taken into foster. They were all fine. At the same time, Apple, who is the big cat there, was pregnant. She lost all of her babies. They had to do an emergency hysterectomy. She ended up at the same foster house. So she's in one room, bottle babies are in the other. They're crying and she starts going crazy to get to them. And finally, after like a couple of days, they were afraid she's going to hurt herself. They let her in because they didn't want the babies to suckle on her and to mess up her surgery sites. Anyway, she became these kittens' mother. And after the first two were adopted, the rescue decided to keep these two together. And telling their story was the key to getting them adopted. So definitely, if they have a story, tell it. We thank you so much for being here. Our emails are here. Email us anytime. We're happy to talk about anything. Any questions you have. We do have some resources. So thank you guys so much. We can do questions. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I learned a ton. I have to say one of my favorite things that came from that was in the chat box. I found out that there's a Relax My Cat album available on Apple Music. So we can add that to our list of resources of things that we can use to help out with relaxing cats when they come in. So I think that was CJ Keith who put that in there. So thank you, CJ, for sharing that tidbit of info with us. All right, let's head to some more questions. Is there another one in that answered box that you want me to pull off mute and we will get it answered?
Let's do Amy.
Amy. Okay, Amy, we are coming to ya. That's perfect. We just talked about this.
Yes.
So let me pull her up. And Amy, I'm not going to try your last name. You're welcome. We are. All right, Amy, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, Amy. All right, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, I was just hoping Kelly could repeat or spell out the name of the CD she mentioned that sends pets to sleep, because I definitely want to look that up.
It's called Cantoma. I'm gonna type it in the chat. Literally every time I transport pets, I put that CD on, and I've never had it fail. They always fall asleep, no matter how. The band is called Cantoma, and I believe the album is also called Cantoma.
Thanks for your question,
Thank
Amy.
you.
All right, maybe Wanda next.
All right, Wanda, we are coming your way. Get ready for us, Wanda. Wanda Wood. All right, Wanda, you're on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Hello. I am an experienced fosterer, and I took on a 14-year-old foster cat. She was turned into the shelter by a family that was made homeless. So I'm kind of assuming that's the only family she's ever had. It will be 2 weeks tomorrow that she's been here, and she won't come out from under the couch. That's fine. I just let her be. I have her litter box on one end of the couch, her food on the other end, so they're not close together. She's eating fine. She usually eats at night after I'm in bed. I'm the only person here with no other pets, so it's a fairly quiet household. But the last 3 nights, she started urinating and pooping on the couch. The first night, it was just pooping. It was easy to clean up because it was real hard. But last night, she actually urinated too. I have puppy pads down in sheets, so it's not going on anything. Last night, I sprayed the location with just some air freshener, thinking maybe the scent of that would put her off from using it again. What can I do to get her back to the litter box?
Really good question, Wanda. And first off, thank you for being a foster caregiver, especially thank you for fostering the senior kitties. And I can tell by everything that you've tried to do that you know a whole lot about cats, because you've already done a lot of the things that are normal recommendations for this type of situation, which can be really, really difficult. You're doing the things like keeping the litter box as close as possible to where she is and putting something on the couch so that it's not damaging the couch. You could do something like putting plastic or something on the couch to protect it, as well as to make it be a surface that or tinfoil or something like that, a surface that she doesn't necessarily want to put her feet on. You could try something like that. It's usually what I'll recommend doing are many of the things that you are already doing in terms of keeping the quiet environment and keeping things close. You said she's eating well, and that's good, because one of the things we need to be concerned about is whether she has some underlying medical something that is making her feel uncomfortable and pee and poop outside of the litter box. Is she using the litter box at all right now, or no?
Hang on, I muted her. Coming back to you, Wanda. All right. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Wanda.
Okay. It looks like she might have done just a little last night. I do feel it's behavioral. I've been mixing, she has hard food out, but it doesn't look like she touches it. I've been mixing water in with the wet food just so she's getting the fluids. So I haven't been concerned that she was sick. I really think it's behavioral.
Okay. And is the litter box covered or uncovered?
Uncovered.
Okay. Most cats do prefer an uncovered box, but every cat is different. And so one thing, if you have an extra box, I would give her another box that is covered. Another thing I would do is try a different type of litter in a different box if that's a possibility. I know it's really tough to get to the stores nowadays, and shipping is slow if we're ordering things. But that would be another thing to try. And then I would also be doing other things to try to reduce her stress. So you might consider pheromones to reduce her overall stress and the anxiety level. Something like Feel Away would be something that you could try with her. Kelly, do you have any thoughts or suggestions?
Everything you said was perfect. I would definitely be using like Fell Away or something, and also put some like really calming music on. But
yeah, and the putting smells that she doesn't like on the couch was a good idea. So you're doing a lot. I hope that we had some suggestions that might help. Please make sure you have my email address. I'd love to talk to you about this more. If you try covering it and that's still not helping, I'd love to help. Oftentimes with these cats, we address things. We try one thing, that if that doesn't work, then we try the next. So I'd love to stay in touch with you and help if this problem is continuing.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you, Wanda.
Yes.
All right, there is an interesting question in the chat box. So I'm curious if we can go to this question. It's Katarina or Katharina, I'm not positive how to pronounce it. Tell me what you think about answering that one, because I think some other people might be in an interesting place and we can get creative here.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let's pull her off mute and have her ask that one. All right, Katharina, can you hear us? Let's see.
Hey, yeah, can you hear me?
We can. We saw your question. We love it. Can you ask it for the whole group?
Yeah, so the cat that I have, she's 12 years old. She's really playful and really fun, but she just always looks like she's glaring. And so I take pictures of her being fun, and she's just like staring like into their souls, like angrily. So I was just wondering how to kind of present her better for, you know, the media stuff to help get her adopted.
This is actually something I have struggled with myself with cat foster, well, a couple of cat fosters. Like some of them, they just have like RBF and it's like, what do you do? But there are a couple of things you can do. Well, the first one I would suggest is to just be always taking pictures, because there is going to be that moment when they are letting their guard down a little bit. But the other thing is maybe, you know, even you can kind of roll with it and, you know, make it into some memes. Think about what she could be like angry about, you know, or not angry about, but like funny. I think there's a way you could roll with it. Or in like her bio, you can say she looks like she looks angry, but she's actually a really wonderful cat. I would, or also, you know, even if maybe get some video, I would say get some video definitely as well. Because I think that seeing the video will help people to understand who she really is. Like if you're petting her and she's liking it versus a photo, which will just show one thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cool.
Sheila?
Thanks for that question. I liked that one. I think a lot of people go through that with their pets in the best way. I always like to take a video, then find a screenshot in there somewhere too. So always a fun trick.
Yeah, I am not an expert in this area, so what I do is I call Kelly and I ask for help.
That's a great solution. I love it.
It's great because I call Sheila all the time.
Perfect. It's perfect. Okay. Any other questions in that answered column that we would like to take, team? And you can check out those open ones too if you want.
Let's do Mia.
Mia. All right, Mia E. We are coming to you. Mia. All right, Mia, it's looking like, let's see. Having a hard time unmuting Mia. Let's see if this works. All right, well, it is not letting me pull Mia off of mute, unfortunately, but Mia, we are still going to ask and answer your question. So the question is, for those looking to foster, are there organizations besides shelters that are looking for volunteers?
So I was hoping that she was going to be able to ask this live because I was hoping we could get a little more information from her in turn. Maybe she can type in the chat whether she is looking to foster with an organization that's not a shelter or whether she's just looking to volunteer and help out in the animal space. So Mia, if you're here and can type in the chat, that'd be wonderful.
Cool. I just posed that question as well in the chat, so I can keep an eye out for that answer to come through from Mia. We can table that question and then head on to the next. How's that sound?
All right, let's do Lori.
Perfect. All right, Lori. Let's see here. Okay. Lori. Hey, Lori, are you there and can you hear us?
Yep, can you hear me?
We can. Can you go ahead and ask your question for the whole group?
Of course. So we are getting 10-week-old kittens next week after they get spayed and neutered. And we have like a special room in our house that's going to be kind of kitten proof. But this is our first time with kittens. We've only had like adult cats that we've adopted in the past. So I'm not really sure how long will they need to be kind of in an isolated room before we can kind of let them move into the rest of the house, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I'm sorry, I missed whether you have other cats in your house.
No, these will be our only pets. It's a boy and a girl. They're brother and sister. Oh, I'm sorry. My daughter would like to mention she has a fish.
Ah,
Always forget about the fish.
we love fish. All right. Well, thanks for your question. In terms of keeping them in a kitten-proof room, oftentimes it is easiest to keep them in a single room just because kittens can get into a lot of trouble and it's easier to proof one room as opposed to an entire house, especially thinking about things like how much kittens like to chew on cords and things like that. So I really like to keep them in a room where I can make sure there aren't cords plugged into outlets that they can electrocute themselves on and things like that. However, having said that, if you are kitten proofing the entire house and doing things like looking for plants and things they can knock over and hazards like that, number one, I always am going to answer saying refer to your foster manual and what your foster organization tells you to do, because what I do might be different and that doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong. But in general, if they're doing really well and not having problems, I recommend after 2 weeks, you can start letting them explore the rest of the house. I do recommend that 2 weeks just in case they get sick with something, they're not spreading it all over the house. Hope that answers your question. Kelly, do you have anything to add?
Just that if you have a really big house, you might want to put a couple of litter boxes around because they might, go far and then be like, how do I get back?
Okay, good idea.
Yeah. And really good suggestion, Kelly, because that's really common for kittens because all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I have to, just like a small child, right? I have to go. And if the litter box is far away, they're not going to get to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. We appreciate your question. All right, who is up next?
Should we do Elizabeth?
Elizabeth. Yeah, let's do Elizabeth. All right, Elizabeth Curry, we are heading your way. Hey, Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. Can you go ahead and ask your question for the whole group?
Okay, I have a feral cat from the shelter, and she's been under a bed for about 2 weeks. I'm trying to socialize her, but I don't want to freak her out. So other than food on your hand, do you have any suggestions? And I do have other cats.
Okay, I would definitely, what I would probably do, is it possible to take a nap in that room?
Yes, absolutely.
I would try that, maybe like, I don't know, maybe one a day for a week. Sometimes that can kind of help them because it's like you're there, but you're not a threat as much. I would also maybe get some baby food if you can, or tuna juice and just put it in with her food. so that she gets used to it enough and likes it. And then I would start coming into the room and have some like in a little dish and put it, close to where she is. And then if she comes out to eat it, then kind of like slowly, day by day, moving it closer to you.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to get her. I think I'm going to end up keeping her.
Mm-hmm.
But she definitely was an outdoor cat. She's got a clipped ear. The shelter said she came from a hoarding situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking she needs a lot of time to calm down. And I think she's okay with my cats because she does come out at night when we're sleeping.
That makes sense. A lot of hoarding cats, from what I've experienced, since they live with cats all the time, they do actually have really good social skills.
Okay, but not with people.
Yes, exactly. With one another, perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a good. I like the hand. I like the food on the hand. I like that idea. I'm going to try that. All right. Good.
Yeah. I would definitely put it on something else to begin with, because she may be too scared at first to eat it off your hand. But once she's kind of addicted to it, like baby food, then you can move on.
Okay, good.
Sheila, do you have anything?
Yeah, great suggestions, Kelly. The only thing I would add is you want to avoid doing things like when you have the food and you're gradually getting it closer to you, when it's starting to get close to you, that you reach out and pet her, because that's a really common way to then make her too scared to continue. You really want her to trust you and start choosing to be around you because you give her good things and you're not scaring her in any way.
Okay.
So that's really important to remember.
All right, good. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for that question, Elizabeth. That was great. We love that one. Okay, we're down to our final 4 minutes. So I think we have time for one, but really quick, Kelly, do you have an update on what happened to Guy? Like Guy's final story? We've gotten a couple questions about Guy. So make sure we get to this.
That's awesome.
One more.
He was adopted by a guy. He was with us for about 2 months, and this guy came over. He was just a really nice guy, and he's still there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the update. We had a couple people were real invested, so we wanted to make sure. All right. And is there one more question out of that Q&A that we want to select and have asked and answered?
Kelly, do you want to pick one?
Let's see.
And while Kelly is picking, just to mention, with these fearful cats like Guy, we did some research, or a colleague of mine, I should say, did some research probably about 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, looking at fearful cats. And in shelters, the most common reason that they were fearful and aggressive in the shelter was actually the other cats in the environment. So it's not at all uncommon to have cats like Guy, that you get them out of the environment where there's so much going on, and they do so much better. And that's why foster care is so important.
That's awesome.
Sheila, Bonnie Gilbsdorf?
Yeah, that looks great.
Cool. Okay, we had a couple of questions in the chat too, kind of related to this, and I think we can find a way to apply this. So Bonnie, we are coming to you. Hey there, Bonnie. Let's see, did it work?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so the question is actually from my 12-year-old son, Xander, so I'm going to let him go ahead and ask.
Cool, thanks, Xander.
All right, so I'm currently getting a 10 to 12 month old cat who is super, super sweet, but she is so incredibly shy. When we first met her in our local shelter, she would not even come over to us. And
then she did.
Yeah, eventually she was getting a bit curious and came over. So, it took a minute after that, but eventually we managed to get her to, what's the best way to describe it? Eventually we managed to get her to just relax.
Okay, ask your question.
So, I'm really just wondering, what is the best way for us to what is the best way for us to introduce her to our 5-year-old dog, Sprout, this rat terrier who is full of endless energy, and our 17-year-old cat, Jasmine, who is definitely our senior in the house.
Wow. You have a full house. All right.
Yeah.
Kelly, Sheila, what do you think about this one?
I'm going to let Kelly jump in, but I'm super excited about who you have in your house because I don't know if you can see that dog in my background, but he's a 17-year-old rat terrier. Go ahead, Kelly.
So the first thing is definitely because she's in the shelter, it may, she don't necessarily expect her to be shy at home. It may just be that she's afraid in the shelter. And because she's afraid with people also, don't expect, it doesn't mean that she's not going to be friendly with cats and dogs. But I would definitely do it very slowly. And I'm going to let Sheila detail that process.
So I would probably introduce her to your cat first, assuming given the dog you have, I'm guessing that your dog is very playful. My rat terrier loves cats and hopefully yours does too, but even a dog who loves cats can be overwhelming if she ends up being shy when you take her to your house. So I would do your cat first, so keeping your dog separate unless your dog is on leash on another side of the room where you're controlling your dog and making sure that your dog cannot chase or go after the cat. So exposing to the other cat first, and with a senior cat, it's very likely that that's going to go really, really easily. So I'm actually not going to talk about that anymore. With your dog, oftentimes that's the biggest challenge, especially if it may go great. They may love each other and they may immediately want to play with each other, but sometimes dogs can be very overwhelming to cats. So slow introductions while not forcing any type of interaction, letting your cat, making sure you have lots of cat trees and things like that in the environment, places for the cat to hide and get away from the dog, and keeping the dog managed and on leash during the introduction process so that you can make sure that the dog is not overwhelming, and just introducing slowly over time. And until you see that the cat is coming up and wanting to interact with the dog, I wouldn't start letting the dog off leash, and having interaction sessions. So doing a 15-minute session where they're around each other and then separating them completely so that she's not overwhelmed 24/7 if she's stressed by the dog. Couple tips there. Anything else to add, Kelly?
No.
Awesome. Well, Xander, we wish you the best of luck, and we're so grateful that you're adding yet another one to your household. So Bonnie, thanks for letting that happen, and good luck, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to 1:02 my time, which is 2 minutes over, but I think it was worth it. So thank you so much to both Kelly and Dr. Segerson. We are so grateful that you were able to join us today. Thank you to all of those who were able to join this call. We didn't get to all of the questions, but there was so much good information here. You all will receive this call in an emailed format within the next 24 hours, so keep an eye out. And it will also be available at petcofoundation.org/foster, petcofoundation.org/foster. We'll do our due diligence of kind of pulling together all the resources that we mentioned in the chat as well. So you'll have access to all of those after the call as well. So thank you all once again for joining us, and thank you all so much. We appreciate it. Good luck on your journey.
Thanks so much
Bye,
for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.